So I'm Sharon Chen, part of EY's global FinTech team. Joining me here today is Benedita, co-founder of Blanco, Samantha, the Chief Investment Officer for IMMO Capital, and Lauren, the founder of Invigorate. We're here to talk about FinTech, our observations, how we got started in the industry, how we got to where we are today, and where we see things going. There's a lot we hope to cover in this session, but please don't be shy about sending through questions. We'll also aim to leave some time towards the end. So I think it'll be helpful for the audience if we each explain what roles we play in the FinTech ecosystem and how we make the industry a better place. To start with, I'm responsible for identifying and building relationships with fast-growing FinTech and wealth tech startups on behalf of EY and our clients. That also means working with financial services organizations to grow and scale their businesses, advising them on developing new propositions and solutions, conducting research, and supporting policy development, generally acting as a facilitator, bringing together different elements and activities and people from across FinTech and financial services. Benedita, you also work closely with wealth and asset management, do you not?
Yeah, I do. My company actually has built the entire back end for wealth and asset managers. So from indeed KYC to portfolio management and security administration. Yeah, and as a female founder of a FinTech, I think I play multiple roles in the ecosystem. First, of course, as a female tech founder, I'm constantly stimulating diversity. I think I have a societal obligation to do so as a female tech founder, because if I don't do it, whom else is going to do it? There's of course more of an educational role that I think all of us are playing, and that's maybe also part of what my company or my colleagues are doing. One of my colleagues is, for example, in the top 10 of RegTech influencers. He tries to educate people on RegTech, but also we're going to launch, for example, Jargon Busters quite soon. That'll be like mini wiki videos to explain the jargon in the business and to explain a bit more on what's happening in the RegTech and in the wealth tech. Then I think that with our products, we're creating an easy market entry for new parties in wealth management by offering them the entire infrastructure or back of the house of their new robo-advisor or their new fund. And finally, by using new technology, we lower the prices for investing, and thereby we create more inclusiveness by making these investments or the possibility to invest available for a way larger group of people, where previously, investing was meant for the really high net worth individuals. We try to open it up for a large group of people. So by our product, but also by the role I'm trying to play, I try to contribute to the ecosystem.
Great, thank you, Benedita. And Lauren, I imagine a lot of that in terms of unfamiliarity with investment jargon and trying to bring that close to home would ring quite true to some of the things you might be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the founder of Invigorate. We are an advisory marketplace for high growth, high potential businesses. We work directly with founders, but also with their investors to help accelerate the success from Series A to IPO. And really, through our advisory marketplace and advisory network of serial entrepreneurs, exited founders, people that have worked in the high growth business space, we not only help accelerate FinTechs achieve their goals, but actually other players across the ecosystem. And I think we're in a very unique position to not only kind of advance the goals of particular FinTechs, but also how they play with others in the ecosystem, which is a very exciting position to be in. And I think certainly the not only the opportunities that FinTech can play, but how the other industries interact with that, there's certainly a lot of potential to do that. In terms of the role in which Invigorate plays more broadly, I think redefining access to expertise is certainly very critical for more people to be able to win. And so therefore more opportunities for people to have access to really great expertise will allow a new generation of entrepreneurs to kind of really come through. So you don't necessarily need to have worked in a particular place or have a particular network in order to succeed. And then lastly, certainly working with investors to help offer better portfolio support and better returns, ultimately boost the ecosystem. So better returns the investors can give to their investors means more capital will flow into the ecosystem, and then certainly more businesses being funded. So while not specifically a fintech ourselves, we do touch a lot on numerous players in the ecosystem more broadly.
Thanks, Lauren. And Samantha, I imagine you see quite a lot in your hats when you're trying to enable real estate investment.
Yeah, absolutely. So IMO, just very briefly, we are a tech-driven real estate or residential investment management platform. So we target residential by acquiring direct from consumers and building up portfolios for institutional investors. Traditionally, they couldn't do that because real estate is such a traditional asset class, and residential is so granular that using traditional manual processes it's completely inefficient to be able to source, underwrite, acquire, lease up, manage these sorts of portfolios at scale. So what we're doing is really unlocking this asset class for institutions by applying, we've developed the technology across the value chain to automate a lot of those traditional workflows, and then also use data to generate insights and market intelligence to make smarter investment decisions. And as real estate financial services in general is so traditional financial services is still probably light years ahead of the rest, like the real estate investment world. The amount of technology, even though it's legacy heavy technology in financial services within the banking sector and stuff, it's still there's still technology there. Whereas real estate has so far to go in terms of catching up, in terms of like bringing in technology and sort of really changing the industry. So IMO is really, we have a huge challenge on our hands of trying to also partly educate the whole industry on what technology can do and how it can unlock asset classes that traditionally investors had completely dismissed because, like I said, using traditional methods, it just wasn't possible to access this asset class. We also have a big education role towards investors. Our business is also very B2C focused because it's residential. Residential is such a consumer-facing product. We're buying from consumers and we're renting to consumers. So for us, our business is very much two-sided from that regard, and we see a huge responsibility on our shoulders to be creating a fantastic product, which is the home for consumers, and also providing a really fantastic service. Because to us, it makes no sense that most consumer products, such as like your cup of coffee, you spend €4 on it, and you get a very consistent product and a great service generally. But yet, for the highest expense of your life every month, which is often your accommodation, and if you're renting, you often get treated like crap, frankly, by your landlords or your managing agents, and the home that you're renting is often substandard. So we see ourselves really trying to pioneer and change that and deliver a great product for consumers as well.
Fantastic. Actually, I want to pick up on something you were saying at the beginning about how a lot of your role is trying to educate the industry on the role of technology, and in fact it is kind of the new innovative technologies, mobile, cloud, blockchain, even AI, that really makes this industry FinTech as we know it, in opposed to the very traditional financial technology or financial services. But because this industry is such a new one, and it's such a combination of both the technology on the tech side and the financial aspect on the fin side and adding in a dash of kind of innovation magic and some mystique, and also a lot of interest from at democratizing it at the more consumer or smaller enterprise level. I'd love to understand from each of you, how did you get in here? How did we all get in here? And what is it about the industry that kind of drew us and keeps us here? Sam, can I go back to you, because you've got the most traditional financial services background? Oh, sorry, you're muted, Sam.
Sorry, thank you. So I co-founded IMO almost 4 years ago now, but before that, I spent about 12, 13 years in the corporate world. That was all real estate investment focused, but it was ranging from corporate finance advisory roles all the way to my last corporate stint was working in private equity at Blackstone for several years. I left the corporate world very much with the objective of doing something more entrepreneurial. I kept getting myself into trouble in the corporate world. I wasn't very good at staying in my box. Yeah, very much knew I wanted to do something a lot more entrepreneurial. But I didn't leave, targeting FinTech per se. I didn't go out saying I want to build a FinTech company. I knew I wanted to do something real estate related because I am very passionate about the industry, and I knew that I wanted to do something tech related. And I actually met one of my co-founders about 4 years ago, and we were originally bouncing around the B2C concept that I mentioned to you as well, so around buying homes directly from consumers. So the initial concept wasn't even FinTech focused, it was very consumer focused. But then as we were developing the idea, we very much, and I was connecting my institutional knowledge to this and realizing, having seen that there was so much institutional demand for residential, but there just wasn't nearly enough supply to be able to meet the demand, because investors were traditionally only looking at buying sort of blocks of residential or doing residential developments, and there just wasn't enough of those sorts of deals around to satisfy the amount of demand from those institutions. So it really was for me a light bulb moment that if we can use the technology to automate those inefficient workflows and then use the data on top to inform smarter investment decisions, we really could unlock what is the largest asset class in the world. Residential it's bigger than every single other asset class, like equities, bonds, all the other commercial real estate sectors, and less than 2% at the moment can be accessed by institutions, whereas every other asset class is 80 to 95% held by institutions. So it really was such an obvious opportunity to use technology for the first time to unlock this asset class for institutions.
Great, thanks, Samantha. Now, Bernadette, you and I actually have a similar background in that we both came from consulting, albeit I ended up staying and trying to build a business within EY, but you went off and decided to start your own thing. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, as a strategy consultant, I guess 8 years ago, I went to do an assignment at a large Dutch broker custodian bank, well, the goal was to split their B2B and their B2C departments. And what happened is actually that it became for sale. The B2B part became for sale. And I was asked as an interim CFO for that part to, well, lead the transaction and also to become part of a management buyout. And that is also where I met my my co-founder. He was the director of the B2B department. And our management buyout failed, but really at the last moment. The press release was already sent, everything was arranged, every comma of the contract was negotiated. And then instead of with a business, we stood outside with a painting and some plastic bags under our arms. So that was quite a bit of a disillusion after, I guess, 1.5 years working on the buyout. But then we thought, yeah, okay, we know this market really well. We know exactly where these wealth managers are underserved. We can do this way better with new tech. So let's go and do it ourselves. So it was actually a blessing in disguise. And yeah, I thought let's be a part of this adventure too. And it's been a great step to take, to be honest.
Great. And Lauren, I'm sure you've seen so many businesses launch in your time, but how did yours begin?
Yeah, absolutely. So much like yourselves, I'm also a strategy consultant by background, helped lots of FTSE 100 companies think about innovation, clearing, partnering, acquiring, scale-ups, but always from kind of a corporate lens looking in. I then was involved in a policy and led a policy piece with the British Business Bank and Treasury, looking at how to get more scale-up capital into the UK startup ecosystem. We had 6 of the top pension funds around the table, and we really built the investment case on why growth equity and venture capital is a great asset class to invest in alongside all the other options. The private markets has certainly outperformed public markets, and VC and growth equity has outperformed equities by 7% in the last 40 years. And you know, I think what's really exciting, and you know, we're all in it, we can see the potential of what innovation is bringing to the economy, to entrepreneurs, and certainly job creation more broadly. So it certainly was very exciting to kind of see a whole bunch of different stuff happening, more capital flowing into it, and certainly value being created. But wearing my strat consultancy sort of hat on, I guess I love to solve a problem. We were speaking to tons of founders and tons of investors, and they just felt like there was a lot of inefficiency in the process around really starting and scaling a business. There was no one that really said, this is what it takes to scale a business. Pockets of information sat across the ecosystem, and we are really codifying that. We are a data-driven platform that's allowing you at any given point to understand what it means to take your business to the next step, and really who are the best advisors that can help you do that. That's relevant for your stage, for your industry, and really the outcomes that you want to achieve. So in some ways, my consulting background has been incredibly helpful, useful, and much like Sam and Benedita's piece, a bit of a corporate stint really does allow you to kind of have a really great understanding of how industries operate, or you know, perhaps where some of the gaps are. Yeah, I didn't necessarily think I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I thought, gosh, this is a problem and no one else is solving it. So I'm going to dash in and kick Invigorate off the ground. And yeah, I think that's probably how most entrepreneurs started, as really problem solvers at heart.
I also do think that a strategy consulting profile is a very suitable profile to have as an entrepreneur, because you're educated to know at least 80% of everything, and then you excel in maybe 2 more things, but at least you know about everything. That's super suitable, especially in the first years.
Absolutely. And if not, the other 20%, you know how to dress it up. So it sounds like you do, doesn't it? So we've danced around this a bit, or we've touched on it a bit, but there's clearly a lot of great vision around, I guess, the screen, this virtual table. But how has that impacted your scaling ability? Like, how have you kind of built on that vision and allowed it to take you to where you are now? So Lauren, if we could come back to you.
So I think the best part about being an entrepreneur is that you get to think big, and you get to constantly think about pushing the barriers and really what does different look like. But the challenge with that is that you then have to also be able to make sure that you can execute in very small iterative ways in order to prove that the direction you're going in makes sense. So I think the very big mindset shift, you know, perhaps for me, from going from delivering projects and kind of working in a business for 3 months and then kind of moving on to the next thing, is I'm in a 10-year experiment that I'm constantly iterating as I go, and every day is kind of incremental changes. But it is really, it's a bunch of different sprints in a long marathon. And I think that cadence just really ticks some people's boxes. Other people think that's the worst nightmare ever. But I think certainly from a a professional point of view, that's super exciting. And then more broadly, you know, there is nothing better than actually helping someone else's business move forward. And that is like my personal intrinsic, you know, type of piece that I've really been able to, and very luckily been able to kind of tie Invigorate's values to my own, actually service and really helping others as sort of non-FinTech or, you know, financially driven as it sounds. We can actually help other businesses create value, generate revenue, and really align incentives, which is really exciting.
I think one of the other challenges with vision is that founders are sort of quite often very creative individuals, and often, you know, there is no shortage of vision, and there are so many ideas that constantly are coming up. So I think one of the huge challenges that any founder faces is how to prioritize and how to really be able to sift through all those different ideas and really understand which ones to focus on. And then also being able to align the whole business to be really laser focused on the execution of those ideas. Yeah, I know that's definitely one of the things that we struggled with a lot, especially at the early days, was trying to do too much. We had too many ideas. We still have too many ideas, but I think we've at least introduced a bit more discipline into the business, into figuring out which ideas to target, and then, you know, putting OKRs and things like that in place to actually be, as a business, be really laser focused on executing.
Absolutely. And
yeah, and actually entrepreneurship is just like solving problems. There's always problems to solve, and when you've solved one, the next one is appearing, and the only thing you need to make sure is that the problems you're solving are getting better over time. Yeah, that's being an entrepreneur. It's just that, solving problems, and you have to like that. If you like it, it's fantastic.
Duly noted. And I suppose as part of that, delivering on that vision, it's also, you know, Lauren, you brought up values already. There's a lot of thinking out there about, do you have your values and your culture first, or is that something that you develop over time as you've solved problems and as you kind of iterate and develop and start understanding where you are exactly focusing your propositions? So just to call back on that famous quote from Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for lunch. How do you know when you have the right values and the right culture in your business? Shall we start with Bernadette?
Yeah, well, I think it all starts with indeed your vision as an entrepreneur and what kind of company you want to build yourself and what kind of company suits you. Well, we've spoken about my background in strategy consulting, so I've seen really a lot of companies from within before I started Blanco. And when I started it, I thought, okay, I want to create the ideal company to work for, and I think I pretty well succeeded. And for me, that was built on 3 pillars. And the first one is diversity, because I really think that more diverse teams get to better solutions. Plus, I think that I, as a female tech founder, have a societal obligation to promote diversity, because otherwise, yeah, who's going to do it? And the other 2 are responsibility and freedom, because if you give people responsibility and they are carrying out their responsibilities in the right way, they can do that in the way they like best, that works best for them, where, how, whenever they want to work. How I think it works is that you always have to guard your values and also hire people that believe in those values too. So culture is not just created at the beginning. It's something you have to defend all along the way. And how do you know you've got the right one? I think that in the end, when you have happy people working for you, when you have happy customers, then a self-sustaining business, then you've done the right thing. But it's really deep down what kind of company you want to have as a founder, because yeah, you're the one creating it and also the one guarding it for the first at least 10 years.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for us, we didn't necessarily map out what our values were, but the culture was just inherent within the founders and the early people within the business at the beginning. But as Benedita said, as we grew, we have we've had to work really hard to not just maintain and defend, but nurture and continue to develop and grow and push our culture as well and challenge ourselves. Are we doing the right things here? Did we do that? You know, did we make the right decisions there? Did we, you know, how can we be doing it better next time? And, you know, and we've had to let go of people along the way as well that we felt didn't, you know, weren't good for our culture and weren't, you know, positively contributing to that. So there's, you know, hard decisions that have come along the way as well. But it's only actually, if I'm honest, it's only the past, you know, we've been going now for almost 4 years, but it's only within the past year that we've actually been able to really start defining our values in a way that's truly meaningful. Because I think you often read a lot of values on company websites and they're very generic. Like you can't tell the difference, like they all the same company. So it actually took us a really long time to know ourselves, like what really are our values and really how do we articulate them in a way that we feel differentiates us from other companies. And yeah, we make sure, you know, those values are, you know, very much upheld. We're testing every interviewee is sort of being tested against those values as well, because yeah, it's so crucial that we every person that comes in is very much aligned to those values.
Yeah, it's also what we do. For example, one of our values is inclusive. The others are determined and nimble, but inclusive is one. And we also sometimes say to people, okay, the behavior you're showing now, that's not inclusive. So we're really challenging each other on the values, and it becomes an open conversation, and that helps. And indeed, Samantha, you've got the brilliant jerks. Those are always the nasty ones to fire because they're brilliant and they know everything, but yeah, they're jerks. So they poison your culture, and
yeah,
in the end, you should let them go.
And that's sometimes really hard as well, especially as a startup, because you feel, you know, especially when you have brilliant jerks, as you so beautifully put it, you know, and you know, you sometimes artificially put too much weight on their brilliance, and you know, you very much worry, like, okay, we let them go, are they, but yes, culturally they're not the right fit, but do we just hang on to them for a bit longer because we need to do X, Y, Z and things like that? But I think we've just sort of learned over the years that ultimately if, you know, you need to hire slow and fire fast, ideally.
Absolutely. I'll just add to that. I think obviously Sam and Benedita, you know, spoke to it, but the accountability. So not only kind of if a founder or founding team kind of sets it, but how you actually communicate it and then keep everyone else kind of keeps each other accountable, I think is how you kind of breed it or certainly scale it. But I think more broadly, being a founder, you learn to stand for things. And I think you also learn to kind of stand for your vision, be confident in that. And I think stand for the culture that you want to set. And much to Benedita's point, you are constantly defending that. Which customers do you actually want to let in, or, you know, kind of work with that actually mirror that? What investors do you want to, what employees do you want to kind of bring into your business? And all of those people can really bring massive inputs into how you actually run and structure your business. So it's hard to stand for things sometimes because they're conflicting priorities, but it does kind of short-term difficult things do benefit long-term you know, outcomes, I think.
Yeah, but you can also make it fun. For example, and as a part of our New Year's breakfast, we had our values quiz, and then it was with really stupid questions, you know, like yeah, I don't know, one of your colleagues tells you he's gay. What do you do? And then there's one right answer, of course, something along the lines of, oh, I say that I'm sorry for him that he didn't come out earlier or something. And then the other ones are, I run away while screaming, or whatever. But just make it fun and make it clear what behavior is expected, and the rest is a joke, and it's clearly a joke. But people do get communicated what the values are. So you can also make it fun. It shouldn't always be a very heavy subject.
Shouldn't be a few words on a website or just posted on a wall, but I think, as you say, embedded into the way you behave and the way everything's interacted. Thanks, all. So just to shift gears slightly, I kind of want to talk about challenges and hurdles. So obviously all founders have to overcome pitfalls and challenges before they reach success. But as women, we've got additional, I guess, hurdles due to, the way society is built, stereotyping, implicit bias, and so on. As it's not uncommon for a lot of, and a lot of women face similar challenges. I think many in the audience would be inspired to understand how you might have faced some challenges in your career, either as a founder or even before you started your businesses, and what you've did to overcome them. Sam, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I'm really pleased to say that since founding IMO, I've been pleasantly surprised in that I have faced very little discrimination for being a woman. That wasn't the case in the corporate world, sadly. It's especially the real estate world. It can be pretty rough. The discrimination against women, whether it's really direct and overt or whether it's just unconscious biases, there's a lot of it there still, unfortunately. I don't know if I necessarily always handled it or tackled it the right way. My approach has always been to sort of try and prove people wrong. Rather, I haven't necessarily always addressed it in the most direct manners, which I probably do more now. I've just older, being more mature, being more confident. I'm just sort of more prepared to call out the BS when I see it. But when I was more junior, and I think this isn't just an issue I face, I think a lot of people, male or female, just wouldn't be as confident in their positions within an organization to call things out like that. Having started IMO though, like I said, I'm actually really pleasantly surprised how little I've come across. That obviously isn't necessarily the same story for lots of other female founders. I know a lot of female founders who have a lot of issues during fundraising. They're often dismissed, they're not taken seriously, and it's a shame, not just for them, but for the whole industry, right? The whole industry is really losing out on incredible talent. And I think part of the reason I haven't necessarily faced so many issues is, my two other co-founders are men. So perhaps that has had something to do with it. And I think also having the Blackstone brand on my CV, for the right or wrong reasons, always, been respected and got a lot of attention from the VC world. I think myself personally, though, I've sort of fallen into the trap of some of the sort of stereotypical female issues that I put on myself, such as imposter syndrome and things like that. I know, when especially at the beginning when starting IMO, I felt that I didn't come from a tech background. I didn't come from a startup world. I didn't know how it worked. I was, the majority of the business is not from the traditional world, so I was very much one of the few people from a very corporate background. And I had a lot of imposter syndrome about, was I too corporate still? Did I really know what I was talking about when I was coming up with ideas? And I think it's taken time for me to build my confidence and know that I am at that table for a reason. I have a valid opinion. My opinion is probably more the kind of the expert end, given my institutional input to the business, but it's absolutely there. So I think anyone, whether you're a founder or whether you're making a transition from a corporate to a tech-based company, I think, as long as you personally have the mindset and the openness to keep challenging any inherent corporate biases you may have, you should know that you are in that company for a reason, and your opinion is just as valid as the people that have come from a tech or startup background. You have something that they very much don't have. I'd want to sort of make sure that message got out to some of the audience today.
And I think we should stop explaining, because often we're asked questions that are never asked to guys. I mean, I have 5 kids, which is super nice. But people ask me, oh, how do you do that? But nobody ever asked my husband. He has the same kids, you know, so but so and when I was younger, I started explaining, and I said, oh yeah, well, but I've got really good help, and you can just pose the question back to the person who's asking you, yeah, how are you doing with your 5 kids or 3 kids or 2 kids or whatever. So we explain way too much. Yeah, that's and yeah, on the other hand, I guess it gets better over time, because I started working a bit under 20 years ago. Then it was way worse. That was indeed in corporates, but that was also before every Me Too discussion that ever took place after. So what happened then is that clients who were 30 years older than I was texted me after a meeting with, oh, you were wearing such sexy boots. How is that relevant? I think that happens less now over time, maybe also because I'm growing older and nobody's thinking I'm wearing sexy boots anymore, but that's okay. But on the other hand, we can also try and benefit from being a woman, because what I think that the good thing is you're not that easily forgotten, because there are not that many like you doing the same things as you. So you can also try and benefit from your special position and try to make the most of it.
Yeah, just lastly, picking up on sort of what Sam said, I think it took a long time for me to realize or to grow into the confidence that I think about a particular problem in the way that I do because of all of my life experience that's very unique to you. So where you grew up or how you think about things or your kind of experience, corporate or startup or whatever it is, actually does put you in a very unique position. And I think stepping into that and owning that, you know, you have a voice, you have an opinion, and you can actually add quite a lot of value, I think is something that we as an ecosystem should be encouraging all entrepreneurs, whether they're, you know, female, from a diverse background, or kind of whoever's sitting around the table, to really pull the chair up and sit at the table. You know, you have something to offer. If you want to start a business and get it off the ground, educate yourself on what everyone else is thinking about, knows about how they're thinking about it, and then add your personal spin and the problem that you're trying to solve on top of that. And that's making light of some of the more difficult kind of structural issues that does exist. Much like Sam, very luckily, I haven't necessarily come up against them per se, perhaps because I'm, you know, if someone says it to me, it's more just like, oh, I haven't quite hit that problem right, and I'm scientifically trying to understand, you know, how that fitted into like a larger framework, whatever. Maybe some of it goes over my head, but there is a lot of unconscious bias that does exist. We all know the stats of 2% of VC funding goes into all female founding teams. You know, the stats are not great. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I think, much like Benedita said, it is up to us, people that are sitting at the table, to bring up another chair for someone else, and to really just help in any way that you can. And much to the point that we're speaking about today, educate about your business, educate about different ways of doing things, educate about how tech can change that. We spend a lot of our day actually educating the market on doing things differently.
Yeah. So Lauren, just picking up on the last thing you're saying about not just educating, but also putting out a chair for, you know, someone else to join. How is that? Would you say that that's a sustainable way of addressing these issues? And if not, this is addressed to everyone, obviously, what might be some of the things we can do to make some of the changes we want to see more sustainable for future generations of entrepreneurs and women in the industry? Lauren, would you like to kick us off?
So, look, I think there are some big structural things that need to change. I think, you know, for example, I think if the pension providers, for example, put more pressure on ESG measurements, etc., that would cascade all the way down. And so VC funds, for example, would be incredibly pressured to report back to their LPs that, you know, they have a particular amount of investment, and it reflects the goals that kind of massive capital sources are requesting. So I think there are big things that big institutions can do, but from our personal perspective, I think it does go back to the values that you're trying to drive in your business. So from our perspective, I don't know what you all think about an advisor or what pops to mind, but I can almost guarantee you it's a white male, it's someone who's experienced a level of privilege in their lifetime. And so it's really our mission as a business for advising the next generation of business leaders. It needs to be from a diverse viewpoint. We all know the stats. D&I leadership teams outperform those with by 36%. It's a proper growth lever. It's not a kind of nice to have. So our advisory pool has 50% diversity, whether that be gender or ethnic background. And so really, I don't see how you can make the change without really walking the walk. I think a lot of people are talking about it and reporting the stats, etc. But unless you are pulling up a chair, helping others that aren't in the room, or really kind of changing the way in which you do business, that has rippling effects on your customers and your suppliers, etc. I actually don't see how else we can do it from the grassroots up without big pension pots doing things differently as well.
We've got a pretty nice initiative here in the Netherlands. It's called FundRight, and that's some sort of, well, maybe it's a foundation, but VCs subscribe to the vow that they will have at least in 65% of their portfolio companies, one woman at least in the management team. And that will be, I guess, in 2 years or something. So I guess those initiatives really help as well. But also I'm selecting my people in another way than normal companies, I think, because the first part of our recruitment process is done through an app by that's made by a startup made by 2 women, so that's good, 2 female co-founders, and it's called Equalture, and it's great. I'm gonna do some promotion for them because you have to play games, and they're measuring your skills, and you can see the results without seeing any CV, without seeing any name, without seeing any gender, age, and you're just seeing results. So the first thing you compare your candidates on is on skills. And after that you can look into a CV. And I had a most funny conversation with my people manager today because she asked me, have you ever read my CV? And I said, well, actually no. So she started to explain me part of her previous experience, but it just doesn't matter because I'm selecting on skills. I want the right people in, and I don't mind about having the right experience as long as you have the right mindset, the right motivation, you share our values, and you've got the right skills. You can learn everything.
That sounds great. I'm definitely going to look it up. I think another thing that we do in the industry is, and what I see working really well is support networks. You know, I think, you know, all of us here, we've mentioned, you know, we very much feel that we individually have the responsibility to help others as well. And I would really encourage people to keep networking and, you know, and find their support groups. You know, like Lauren and I, we didn't even meet through this panel. We met through a women's founder WhatsApp group that that had been set up, and that's got female founders from mainly UK and Europe, but some bit more further afield, but, you know, from all different industries, like, and some of them are brand new entrepreneurs. Some of them have been entrepreneurs, had exits. Some of them are now angels, and, you know, much more established in their careers. But it's a really fantastic group of women who are very much, you know, being very open and explaining constant, like, you know, putting messages out there saying, hi, I'm having XYZ issue. Does anyone have connections here? Does anyone have any advice about this? You know, and everyone is just chipping in and helping support one another. So I think that is, I agree with what Lauren says, like the grassroots stuff doesn't necessarily solve the bigger picture, but you know, it helps when you're there in the moment. So I would encourage people to seek out these sorts of you know, networks and support groups for yourself.
Well, please invite me.
Yes, we're going to add you. We'll definitely add you.
You will.
Well, definitely would support the WhatsApp groups myself, as I'm a member of quite a number of them. That's the number of questions that come through, and even just the level of support and championing each other of successes, I think has made quite a large impact and a lot of women on there. So just last question I'd love to throw to each of you is kind of thinking back to when you were first starting. What did you wish you knew, and what advice would you give to your kind of newly minted founder self? Bernadette, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I would like to tell myself that everything's going to be okay as the first thing. I mean, I've had so many sleepless, well, end of the night. I woke up at 4:30 and I couldn't sleep anymore because I thought, oh, what if we go bankrupt? So I would say to myself, okay, it's going to be okay. That's the first thing. But the second thing would be I would invest more in data from the beginning. In the beginning, you're just running and doing things, but it's better to think about what data you need, what the key drivers of your business are, and to start measuring them in the beginning, because it's way easier when you start early. So that I would do differently. And I would then also say to myself, it's a marathon, so don't sprint, run. I mean, running is fast enough, sprinting, it's almost not possible to keep up, and you sometimes don't even see what's on your way because you're sprinting, you're missing things. Well, yeah, running is good enough. And I would say try to do what you're good at as soon as possible. Don't try to keep doing things on your own, or not on your own. I had a team really quickly, but I went along too long with doing things I didn't really like, or that I wasn't really good at, just because I thought I should do them. And sometimes you just need to hire experts and put your energy where it's most effective. That's it.
Great.
Yeah, I'll pick
Thanks,
up
Bernadette.
back of that. Because just to echo kind of your last point, I think knowing your strengths and really playing to them is part of the art and the skill. And you know, certainly you do kind of firefight and do it all, but when you can and you have the opportunity to, just surround yourself by the very best people that can do the job. And so you stick in your lane and where your strengths are, and then find people who are really good at the other stuff. It's just such a game changer, because they add to you, you add to them, and it's just a really healthy environment. It's a terrible environment to be in, firefighting, and you're doing stuff that you know that you're doing a terrible job at it, but you're just kind of plugging the gap rather than really thinking about growth.
And I think from my side, I think the two things would be, I mean, I touched on it earlier, it was the imposter syndrome stuff. I think it would be have faith in yourself more, and you know, stand up for what you think is the right or wrong way to be doing things, and yeah, just back yourself more. I think the second part would also be around partly what Lauren's saying, like people you surround yourself with. And obviously, I think when you're starting something new and you're doing something that is very new within the industry as well, you get so many pushbacks from so many different people, whether it's people you're trying to hire, whether it's sometimes even people internally, or whether it's, you know, new clients or investors that you're trying to pitch to. You have so many people telling you it can't be done, it can't be done, it can't be done. And it requires a huge amount of resilience and slight, like, you know, bullheadedness to just keep going. and not be disheartened by it. But I think one of the important things is that you still listen to what they're saying. You're trying to understand, why is it that they don't believe XYZ can't happen? And what can we do to prove that XYZ can happen? And then on the flip side, I think it's really important not to just surround yourself by yes people, because there are those people out there as well. So you pitch your idea and they're just like, yes, that's the best thing. That's the, that's going to be amazing. And, I love that idea. But, again, their feedback is, it's a nice pep talk every so often, but their feedback isn't really helping you develop or create the solutions or really solve your business. And like Bernadette was saying, like, it is all about solving those problems every single day. So it's trying to find those people in the middle, whether it's advisors, peers, other founders, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter, but finding those people who believe in what you're doing, but are also realistic in understanding the hurdles that you have to get through, and who are going to be able to help you brainstorm and jam and figure out how to tackle those solutions and support you along your journey. I think, yeah, so trying to find more of those people early on would be really, really helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, on a personal note,
sometimes you can't, last thing. Sometimes you can't choose, but something happens, or you've got, you just got no choice, but you need to do something in a certain a period of time or something, then just accept it. Go for it and make the best of what is available, because sometimes there are no options available and you can just choose one and then go for that and do with it what you can.
No, definitely. I think it's really important to realize from the beginning that sometimes you have to take negative or critical feedback and also make those difficult decisions, and it might knock down your confidence, but actually you overcome that and you come back even stronger and in a better position and having learned more than you were before that. So we have managed to run up completely against time and don't even have time to take any Q&A questions. But I just want to thank each of you for joining me today. It's been such a great conversation that we've had. Like, we've touched on so many different things that I wouldn't even be able to kind of summarize all of them. But I do think that, and I hope that everyone listening and even ourselves are just super inspired by everything that we've shared, building a network, building all the lessons learned from each other. So this is, I've been told, the last live session at the Women in FinTech Summit. So on behalf of WeWork, I also want to thank all the other speakers who joined this track, and also to the audience for all the enthusiasm and questions. And of course, on behalf of everyone on the stage here, the organizers, to thank the organizers of this conference for giving us this virtual stage. Recordings of the talks and panel sessions will be available in the event portal for the next month if anyone wants to rewatch. And I think there will be a one-to-one speed networking session at the end of today with more attendees, which can be accessible on the platform on the left-hand side. So thank you again to everyone, and thank you especially to Lauren, Sam, and Benedette for your time today. It's been great.
Thank you, Sharon.
Bye, everyone.
Sharon.
Thanks, Ryan. Cheerio.